Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast where we're going to talk about common golf lessons that we see on the lesson tee. We're going to do a bit of a snake draft again on this for this episode. Tyson's got his first pick. Take us away.
Yeah, I think a common lesson, I don't think just for me, but would be the over-the-top open face player that's coming in, swinging massively left, complaining that they've lost a lot of distance in the last year. They used to hit it much farther, right? Always. But in the last year, they've lost a lot of distance. And you can contribute that a lot of times to that wide open face at the top, right? So the player has a wide open face for whatever reason. Maybe it's a poor attachment to the club, poor grip, poor arm structure. They get the face wide open at the top. They have no choice but to then swing the shaft through their eyeballs or through their neck. And they're simply trying to swing the face closed, which is the right thing to do for that player in that moment. But obviously it's gonna create the poor wipey slice with no power.
Right. And I like these players when they come to you and say, well, normally I hit the ball pretty straight or I hit a little draw, but sometimes I just hit it off to the right because this player is aiming 20 degrees to the right and their good shots are massive pulls. Okay. Because they've somehow managed to kind of square the face, but really it's still bad. It's still over the top. It's still way left. And when they square up on a mat, because the mat has lines and corners and straight edges and stuff, their path says 15 degrees left.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we always will talk with the player and educate them why it's happening. We've got to get the face stronger sooner, whether that is, once again, getting the grip stronger, changing the arm structure, getting wrist angles better at the top. I will typically start with the face first and see how things start to shake out. You typically see that path get less from out to in. You see the shaft stop chopping their head off the guillotine plane, as we'll call it, start to at least touch the top of the right shoulder in the downswing. Sometimes, though, I will work with that player to move the path first. And sometimes you will then start to see the face squaring up. It's really going to depend on the player, but it is definitely one of the most common lessons that I will give. Not the most common, but it is pretty, especially this time of year when no one's touched their golf club since October. The weather starts to get nice. Hey, I better go get a golf lesson.
I think path is instinctual. So the ball keeps going to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right. Instinctually, subconsciously, the players swing to the left to try to pull the ball to the left. They're trying to make the ball go to the left instead of to the right. The other reason I think that people swing over the top is you can at least hit the ground kind of closer to the ball, more forward.
Absolutely.
The more left you swing, the more forward your low point can be. Jayson, you teach this lesson a lot. I'm assuming we all do.
Yeah. It's funny. That's the lesson that I see the most where people have never seen their swing. Like they come in and they're like, oh yeah, I want to get better at golf. And I'm like, okay, perfect. And they hit a couple of golf shots and I go, hey, have you ever seen your swing on camera? And they go, no, I've never actually videotaped it before. And you show it to them and they're just a shock. You're shock and awe. You know what I mean? Like that can't be me. My swing can't be like that. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, but yeah, that's not lying to you. We've got some work to do. And it can be hard for sure when someone that comes in and they have no awareness of where their face is at the top. And just like you, Tyson, I tackle it one way or the other. And sometimes, you got to start with the face and sometimes you got to start with the path. It sort of depends on the player for sure. And, which concept sometimes breaks through first with them. And you can try both. I think you said in another episode, I really liked where you said we're professional guessers.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I think this guy here, if we can get his face better, it'll start self-organizing a little bit, which is great. And then other times you try that and it's like, oh, no, we got to go path first. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they can start trusting that. Well, then, as you swing down, we still swing that way and we'll close the face and we get into much better. The hardest thing I find for those people is that trying to get them to slow down a little bit to get them to feel like the club coming down on a better plane. They'll be like, well, I'm not going to hit it as far. You may not hit it as far, but you're going to hit it a little bit straighter at least now. And then you can add some speed with proper shaft pitch and rotation later. So how about Erik? What about you? What are your most common?
Not necessarily the most common, but we're just naming common golf lessons that we do. This happens to be one of the most common ones I do. And it's really early extension where someone sets up. It often starts at setup. They set up their weights in their heels, really not their heels, their ankles, because that's when you're just standing up, talking to someone, whatever, your weight's kind of over your ankles. It's an efficient way to stand. It's a good way to stand. But then people just sink down from there. Their weight stays over their ankles. And then when they make a backswing, their body knows I'm going to do something semi-athletic here, and their weight moves forward into the balls of their feet. Their pelvis moves forward. Their head often comes up a little bit because their pelvis is moving forward. They're trying to balance dynamically and be in a little bit more athletic position, but if they're a righty, their right leg often straightens a little too early, or the right hip doesn't really go anywhere, and their left leg and left knee and left hip just go in toward the golf ball. So if you draw a line, for example, on the back of the pelvis, basically on their butt, and on the front of the pelvis, or like near the zipper on their pants or something there, you will see them move through the front line toward the ball, and sometimes they move away from, not through, but away from, toward the golf ball, the back line even. You know, I've seen on gears people 3.5 inches of early extension during the backswing, and it's very common to see 2+.
No, that's crazy. That's a lot.
That is a lot. You know, how do you help that player that you see? Because I definitely see it too. And I think that I call them the bubbles in the new TrackMan TPS software that puts a bubble on the center of the pelvis. Mm-hmm. So you can, they can see this really clearly now, you know, with all the technology that we have.
Right.
What is your go-to when you see that player who's early extending in the backswing to help them minimize that?
Everyone feels it a little bit different, but one of the ways you can visualize this is a little bit where if you put your left hand on the front outside of your left hip and push your whole pelvis through your right ankle or almost behind your right heel, it feels very linear. It feels like a push, but it results in turn, because if your right hip goes back, that's turn, even if your left hip doesn't come forward. I also will have people step up and put their belt right against a countertop or something and try to make a turn where they move away from the belt, or sorry, away from the countertop during the backswing. Now that's exaggerated, and I have a video of Dustin Johnson where he pushes through the back line and actually away from the front line. So that's massively overdone in a way. But also, if you have an arrow on your belt, if you picture like a belt buckle that had an arrow pointing from your left to your right, as you rotate, you're constantly kind of feeling like you push a little bit, you know, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch in the direction of that arrow.
I like that. I like the table analogy too. That sort of stands out in my head. And I think what I will find a lot of times when you sort of point that out to a player, you'll see them just sort of shove the pelvis back. Because you told me you don't want my butt to come off the line in the backswing.
Right. Yeah, we don't want them to immediately sit back. We don't want that, yeah.
This episode is brought to you by the Stack System. If you're looking to hit the ball further, wedge it closer, and make more putts, they've got you covered. Dr. Sasha McKenzie and the VP of Fitting and Performance, Marty Jerkson at Ping, have built an amazing AI-driven app to help you with all those parts of your game. Use code SPINAXIS to get 10% off your order. They just released their very own radar device, which is as good as a $3,000 launch monitor to get ball speeds and carry numbers so you can track how much further you're hitting your drives and to dial in those wedge distances. The Stack is being used by many top pros, and you should be using it also. Yeah, I've got not rotating in the backswing, and it's funny. I literally had a lesson 2 hours before this with a guy that came in. We threw him on Sporksbox AI, and we got his numbers first couple swings after he had warmed up. 27 degrees pelvis rotation in the backswing and 76 chest or shoulders, right? So it's like nowhere near even the beginning of the averages that you're looking for. And I just asked him, I said, you know, are you like, what's your thoughts in the backswing? What are you trying to do? And he's like, well, I want to make sure I make this nice compact swing so I can hit the ball straight. It's like, how far do you hit it?
Just limit movement.
Yeah. I just don't want to make any mistakes. And so how far do you hit your 7-iron? He goes, about 130 yards. I'm like, well, you're 40, 45 years old. He's like, I'm 42. I'm like, okay. That's about 20 to 30 yards short of what you need to be hitting it to be able to play from the yardage that you were telling me that you want to play from. So you struggle hitting all long par fours? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, let's get some rotation in there. And he's like, yeah, but I don't want to hit it poorly. I'm like, well, think about it this way. If you properly rotate it in your backswing, you're actually going to have more time in the downswing to sort anything out. How about that? And he went, oh, I like that. And so about 5 minutes later, he's turning his hips to 42 and his chest to like 99 or something like that. Like even more. And I was like, what is that? Is that painful? Is it hurt? He's like, no, it actually feels better. Feels longer and stronger. And hitting the ball. I think he hit it at like 22 yards was like the average we were hitting at further. And same like directional, right? Just gain 20 something yards from actually turning into the backswing.
I can top that. I had a guy gain 23 miles per hour with his 7-iron today.
Oh, that's amazing.
Just bending his right arm, not turning. We've all seen it. And the feel for him was all turn, no arms.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They still use their arms, of course.
Did he pay you like $8,000?
Yeah, it should have been, right?
All right, Jayson. So you actually had the next pick as well. What's another common lesson that you give?
Yeah, the next one I'll see, which is always one of my favorites to chat with, because it's always a good chuckle, is people come in here with way too much tension. And normally when people talk about tension, they're thinking about into the actual grip. And I'm talking a little bit more into the whole body. You'll see those people that are standing over top of their golf ball, and they're almost like afraid to hit a golf shot poorly. And so that tension just rises up from the grip, gets into the arms, straight into the shoulders. And you actually see it in some golfers right in the face, where they just are like crunching their jaw, and their eyes are getting really squinty. They're like, I'm either worried about hitting this golf shot, or I'm trying to rip it so hard that everything's already tense to begin with. But we know muscles need to be like relaxed to be able to move through their full range of motion. So I'll often talk about, we pay to play this game, most of us anyways. We should be out there for fun. Like, do you look like you're having fun at your dress position? And they'll look and they're like, no, I'm not. Like, okay, perfect. Well, let's imagine that. Now, what I don't want, though, is I don't want someone to just be holding the actual grip loosey-goosey. We want to have some amount of like, we're going to move this thing fast early, but it shouldn't translate past that. It shouldn't be into the arms and the shoulders. And so I'll basically just get them to grab the club. And, if I'm doing it outside, I'll get them to huck the club actually out in front of them, not like more flat, because I don't want to break their club. But it's like, okay, how would you move that club really fastly? And then lastly, it's like, okay, well, just don't let go of it. That's the amount of like tension that you need on that club. Everything else is like going to resist you moving through your range of motion. So be loose and free, but put some tension into that club.
Yeah, and I see people when they get to the top, or I'm trying to make them turn or something like that, and they're maybe at P3 or something like that, and you could see them almost shaking. And I'm like, okay, deep breath and just relax. And they do that, and they stop shaking, and they don't move. And I'm like, see, it's not like you fell to the ground. You didn't collapse into a puddle. Like your muscles can still move the club back and move your arms back, and you don't have to like fight it. And I know I tell them, I'm like, it's pretty common because you're trying to control everything. You're trying to move stuff. You're trying to like make your muscles do these things. But really, it's an athletic motion, and we want to swing the club. It's still a swing, which implies different than just like kind of herky-jerky and really a lot of tension. Sometimes you see it at setup where their shoulders are just like almost like raised up, and like, I call it like earmuffs, because they're almost like covering their ears with their shoulders. And it's like, relax, now just move nice and slow.
Yeah, and I'll explain a lot of times, like, there is such a thing as good tension and bad tension, right? And when you're visibly shaking, or you're doing a shoulder shrug in your setup, that would be the definition of bad tension, right?
Yeah, just got to ease that tension, baby.
Erik, you are up next. What is another common lesson for you?
So it's something that I call, in my notes and things like that, I call it ulnar throwing, because what happens is the student coming down will, and this goes a little bit to some of the things that we've talked about a little bit before. If I'm fixing the face a little bit sometimes, this is a go-to for, the over-the-top type swing. But it's also the go-to for someone who says, oh, I just hit it left, I hit it right. Their path is pretty neutral, but they hit it left, they hit it right. It's kind of, they don't have really control over the face. So they will ulnar deviate at just past P6. So you see an angle between like the bottom of their left forearm and the bottom of their wrist, So ulnar deviation, right? Unhinging the club, if you want to call it that. And then that doesn't do anything but keep the face open, because the back of their hand is still facing the face on camera. And then they have to throw it with the right hand to try to time squaring the face up. So you see a big angle in the bottom of their left arm into their back of their hand. And then you see the right hand go whoom, right through, and try to throw the club head to square the face up. And so I have to teach those people, just in my notes, and I'll say it to them, a twist and a roll. So like left wrist palmar flexion, and then I don't know if it's supination or pronation or whatever, because it depends on which hand you're talking about anyway.
Yeah.
But a little bit of a forearm roll. So like the back of the hand, the back of the glove point twists a little bit down to the ground, and then kind of keeps twisting down to the ground and around. Fairly common lesson. I love to get people to hit massive snap hooks at first. Just keep overdoing it. I caution them to say, your job is not to make the ball go left, but if you do your job, the ball will go left. So they do that for a while. They start to hit the hooks. Then as we add speed, they have less time to they have less time to palmar flex and roll, twist and roll. So the ball flight starts to straighten out. Sometimes I have to say, okay, you need to do a little bit less because they're still hitting it left. Most of the time, once they get up to speed, it goes pretty straight. You know, it's almost as much as they can do in a quarter of a second for the downswing.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of golfers out there that try to close the face by sending that wrist angle out, and it's so ineffective into how much more effective the way that you're talking about it, where we actually get the grip to twist rather than tossing that angle.
Yeah, and everyone good, their wrist is moving into extension through the hit and stuff, but you got to get it into enough flexion at some point that you can deliver shaft lean without opening the face up. Because if you just have your wrist slightly cupped, shove the handle forward, the face point's right.
But that also moves the low point, right? And so now they're open face and the low points behind the ball. It's just not necessarily a great combination.
Right, and they can't time it, so that's where they get the left ones, they get the right ones, they get some that are good, but their angle of attack is +1.
Yeah, swinging up on
stuff
it.
like that. So, yeah. Tyson, you got the last one here.
So, yeah, I mean, that leads right into the chicken wing, right? As the player keeps moving forward, that lead arm stays internal for too long because there hasn't been any rotation. So now the elbow starts to buckle as well on the way through. And obviously, if you've listened to some of the previous episodes, poor arm structure is definitely something we see a lot. And this just leads into the exit on the outer side. And once again, same sort of deal. Teaching the player that, hey, it is okay to roll the lead arm on the way through and leave that lead wrist a little bit more in that palmar flexion. And I think a lot of players a lot of times think that rolling is bad because you're supposed to take your hands out of the swing, right? It's like you take your hands out of the swing and we don't swing the golf club. You know, it's sort of the same thing. I a lot of times too, players are then staying back on their backside, right? Not getting their pressure forward to allow them to get this arm to release and roll. Sort of, you know, we can call it the golfing machine up the wall release, where that lead wrist sort of stays flexed for a long time. I'll do that same thing. And hey, if you do this right, it's probably going to hook for a while. You know, that's not a bad thing. When your ball goes left by buckling the arm, that's a different version of left. And like you said, Erik, if we start to add speed and you start to gain the feel of this, you're going to hit it better than you ever have.
Yeah, that's really good. And, you know, it's funny. There's a video out there. I think it's John Rahm at TPI, and they're asking him how he closes the club face. He goes, I'm just rotating my body. But they actually have a camera like down the target line shooting back at him. And he's absolutely just moving those forearms, the wrists, everything is releasing. He's obviously just so skilled that he doesn't feel that anymore. But if you're somebody that the face is too open, you're hitting shots, you know, out to right as a right-handed, yeah, you need to feel that.
And he hits cuts, right? His pelvis is stalling, his arms are rolling, and he hits cuts. And I think that's something that really messes with people's heads.
Yeah, one of the keys for me, when you roll with a little palmar flexion, there's still some space between your forearms, right near your wrists. And when you just throw with the right hand and cup the left wrist, your forearms get very close together. I had a guy once that he actually had like wear marks. He had almost calluses on the inside of his forearms because he rolled his hands over, threw his hands over so much and they rubbed on the follow through. So
don't like that.
Yeah.
Right,
hey,
right.
I don't know. That's a good one to end this one on. Thanks for joining us.
Remember, you can find us on social media at The Spin Axis and online at thespinaxis.com.